Mermaids. Upper body and head of a human, tail of a fish. Not to be confused with sirens, although over time those have evolved to be a similar thing to a mermaid. Originally to the ancient Greeks though, sirens were basically birds with the head of a human. Whatever. The question is though, are they sinister creatures that lure sailors and ships to their doom? Or do they really just want to be part of our world? Welcome to Curious People Wanted. I'm Dr. Darren Raymond Locke, curator of the Barnum Museum. So you all know we have a mermaid in our collection, but it is a reconstruction of the one Barnum owned that was destroyed in a fire. However, if you stay with me until the end of this video, I will show you our real, authentic FeeJee Mermaid. That's right, we have welcomed one into our museum and I have affectionately named it Dobby the House Mermaid, AKA Dobbs for short. I'll give you a trigger warning though. She's a little more creature from the Black Lagoon than Ariel, but every culture has its beauty norms, right? Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's talk mermaids. Mermaids are divine or semi-divine creatures that have been present in the ideology of numerous cultures going back at least to ancient Mesopotamia and Chaldean mythology dating to around 2500 BC. The earliest written account of a mermaid dates to 1000 BC and comes from Syria, where the story of Atargatis, a fertility goddess, was recorded. Atargatis is discussed by sources through the Greek and Roman period as described by Diodorus Siculus as having the face of a woman and otherwise the entire body of a fish. Europe and Asia Minor weren't the only areas to have mermaid lore. Water spirits and mermaid-style gods are found in Africa in the form of Mamiwata, Iran in the form of a water goddess with braided hair and bisected fishtails, and the Nyai-Roro-Kadal from Japan. All of them are equated, interestingly, with ideas of fertility, reproduction, and prosperity. So how in the heck did the idea of mermaids go from benevolent fertility goddess to morally ambiguous, if not sometimes sinister? It goes back to the 3rd century BC when Apollonius of Rhodes wrote an epic called The Voyage of the Argos. The Argos's crew disembarks temporarily and a boy named Hylas gets sort of abducted by a mermaid. Tales like that abound from the story of Lorelei of the Rhine to the carved bench found in Zenor in Cornwall, England. By the 7th century AD, even sirens, which are half bird, half women in Greek mythology, somehow had become cemented into the history of literature as half fish and capable of luring men to their death through the use of their beautiful voices. This idea itself is perpetuated time and time again, even through to Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Mermaids and sirens become something to be feared as their appearance, song, femininity all mark true danger. That being said, they can be kind, but their gifts often come with later misfortune, and they are easily offended, which also results in various water-based problems like, floods. Just seeing them while on a voyage is an omen of storms, untamed seas, disasters, and shipwrecks. Even once benevolent fertility nymphs like the rusalki from the Slavic cultures turn into something dark in the 19th century when they are seen as the ghosts of women who died pretty horrible deaths from drowning and who, in anger and sorrow, lure men and children to their watery demise. I suppose all of this is just a metaphor. Mermaids represent the dualistic nature of the sea. It's fascinating and a source of life, but also can be violent, untamable, and incredibly dangerous and enigmatic. I'll stay away from discussions of The Little Mermaid as the Hans Christian Andersen story is a far cry from the Disney version. It has a lot of Christian overtones and has to do with the mermaid, who is nameless in the book, trying to achieve an immortal soul through marriage and love. Regardless, the fascination with mermaids really increased as world exploration opened new frontiers and resulted in trade with places considered exotic to the Western world, like China, Japan, Indonesia. In 19th century colonial culture, it became all the more popular. Items, artifacts, accounts, all funneled into this fascination. Museums and private collections start to fill with objects from distant lands. Mermaids were among these objects, and even though they are called FeeJee Mermaids, they have nothing to do with Fiji. They were just called that in order to tap into a perceived exoticism. In truth, people probably wanted to believe in mermaids. Certainly, there are reports of mermaid sightings during this period, but also their existence was convenient scientifically. Carl Linnaeus, a Swedish biologist and physician, was assembling a very horizontal taxonomic tree and solidifying what today is binomial nomenclature, a fancy term for naming living things. He felt the existence of mermaids was logical since it could link the animal kingdom to the human one. Mermaids were a type of missing link in that sense, in a way, and evolution would require some sort of transmutation from one thing to its successor. So it wasn't really hard to make the jump to believing in their existence. Remember too, at this time, a lot of scientific disciplines were in their infancy. Geology was just getting named. Mary Anning was doing her thing and, redefining our understanding of prehistoric life through paleontology. No big deal. And then there was that Darwin guy who sailed around on a ship and saw some stuff. Basically, we are looking at an era where dinosaurs were monsters that had suddenly become real, and the discovery of the platypus was simply mind-blowing because, why would anything that weird exist? So why not mermaids too? Of course you had naysayers. There were people that saw conflict in relating animals and humans and wanted to stress the difference between the two groups. And that, my dear viewers, is where Barnum and the FeeJee Mermaids come in. FeeJee Mermaids were not new in the 1800s. There were at least 5 exhibits of mermaids in London alone between 1775 and 1795. But FeeJee Mermaids really begin appearing in the 1800s as curiosities in both museums and traveling shows. Many of the mermaids that begin to appear, including Barnum's, are thought to have been constructed in Japan out of fish and primates. Japanese folklore is replete with composite animals, some of which were featured in Shinto and Buddhist shrines during this period of time. Versions of such animals could be purchased at Japanese mizumono, which were shows or exhibits and represent the beginning of a more popular style of leisure culture open to all strata of society. Mizumono were a part of Japanese culture for over 200 years. Different than traditional forms of artistry like kabuki theater or jasaku literature, mizumono peddled novelty, curiosities, and commercialism. Shows like these increased in frequency after about 1800. But whatever the case with mizumono, the popularity of the FeeJee Mermaid resulted in a small manufacturing business that lasted well into the late 19th century. Some scholars have even suggested that all of the FeeJee Mermaids known in the 19th century were produced by the same artisan. Barnum and Moses Kimball's mermaid was initially purchased by English sea captain Samuel Eads from a Japanese fisherman or sailor in 1822. That's 20 years before Barnum exhibits it. Eads sells the ship he captains to purchase it for 6,000 Spanish dollars. So I see multiple problems with this, not only the lofty sum itself, but also the fact that Captain Eads didn't own the ship he sold. Eads' son eventually sells the mermaid to Moses Kimball, proprietor of the Boston Museum, in 1842. Kimball showed it to Barnum, who ends up leasing it to display in his American Museum in New York City. I know in previous Curious People Wanted videos, curator emeritus Adrian showed our replica of Barnum's mermaid, but I am proud to introduce you to Dobby the House Mermaid. Ain't she a beaut? I'm sure she's the creature of your dreams. And if that is the case, she is single and ready to mingle. Please like and share this video, subscribe to our channel, and feel free to comment if there's a topic you'd like me to explore more. But most importantly, remember to stay curious.